He's always got the time.
Is that because of his... I can't say that. He's got a watch. Have the size of his
Zoom
watch.
into his watch. It's a great watch, but he's always got the time.
This episode of The Watch is the first of its kind. I'll be going in depth with an AFL premiership player about something completely irrelevant to his sporting career. For an NBA special, I introduce Charlie Spargo. Spargs, great to see you. Thanks very much for coming on. We've got a different episode lined up today. Footy is to the side. It's all things basketball. How are you feeling?
Yeah, good. Probably not a bad time to put footy to the side. Didn't expect Dallas to be in the finals. It's shaping up to be a really good series, and I love talking hoops at any time, so thanks for having me on.
No, it's good to have you. Good to see you. Very excited to preview the finals, which are about to kick off, and also just talk your general love of basketball. I sort of noticed it whilst I was at the club working alongside you, but also your Twitter, or X as they call it now.
Yes.
The knowledge you just randomly put onto there is pretty impressive. You're not on Instagram, or you're not public on Instagram. What's your balance with social media?
Yeah, so Instagram, I sort of like to have it more of as a social thing with my friends. And just sort of keep it to my friends and people that I know. So that's private, but Twitter's sort of all systems go. I've loved basketball from a young age. My brother and I have just been sort of diehard Laker fans. I remember the first time I sort of started liking basketball was my cousin brought around an old NBA Live game before 2K sort of had prominence. And we were playing that, and the default teams was Lakers versus Celtics, and we played as the Lakers. And ever since then, I've sort of just been a huge Kobe fan and Laker fan, and just been a bit of a basketball sicko, to be honest. And I reckon once I sort of got a little bit older, became like a teenager, I started really getting into the nitty gritty of it. There was a few years there where I was like dead set about following the draft, so I was massive on the draft. Sort of the few years that sort of around that time when Luka was actually coming out. Don't follow that as much anymore, but yeah, I love sort of getting in depth with it, and Twitter's sort of a spot for me to express that all.
Have you seen the game live?
I have once. It was for the AFL Academy. We had a training camp in Florida, of all places, which was an amazing experience. We stayed at IMG Academy, which is like a premier sports high school over in the States. And we got to go to an Orlando game. So I saw Orlando versus Milwaukee and got to see Giannis in the flesh, which was pretty cool. Haven't been over since, but I am heading over later this year with my family around Christmas time to New York. So hopefully get to a Nets and a Knicks game, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome. Madison Square.
Yeah, that's on the bucket list. I'll fork out however much money I need to get a ticket there.
Yeah, awesome. We spoke briefly then about your socials. What are your thoughts on the NBA players' approach to socials? It's so different to AFL players. Like, some of the athletes are just wild.
Yeah, I mean...
Do you follow them?
I do follow them a bit. I mean, as you said, I'm naturally a little bit more reserved, and Twitter, although I have a public account and I sort of speak to anyone about basketball, I naturally sort of just hold back a little bit. So I guess it's not for me. I wouldn't say the way they sort of say random stuff all the time.
Some of LeBron's captions are just incredible.
Well, I love watching that. I mean, Bailey Fritsch and I talk about that a lot. Some of the captions you have, they crack us up. But it's not for me. But I mean, it does make it entertaining. If they say something about another player or hyping up matchups or just random funny stuff, to be honest, is interesting.
All right, so Dallas-Boston, as you said, it's probably somewhat of a surprise Dallas got there from where they were. I think they were 8th at the trade deadline, made some moves, and they're now here. Boston probably had to make finals all season long.
Yeah,
they had the cleanest possible path. What are you predicting?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, as you said, I did not see Dallas making it at all. I was firmly sort of in on Denver. Especially after they beat the Lakers. I mean, I thought they were the best team all year. And Minnesota sort of were hitting a bit of form, but I didn't think they'd be able to beat Denver 4 times. Yeah. And then even after they went up 2-0, I thought, a lot of the times the greats have their backs against the wall, like Jokic, who's a true great now with his MVPs. And I knew they would sort of respond. And then after, I think it was game 5 or 6, where Jokic absolutely dominated, and I thought they'd just sort of win Game 7 pretty comfortably, and that took me by a massive surprise. I mean, Ant was incredible the whole playoffs, but especially that Game 7. And then I sort of thought maybe it's Ant's time to go to the finals, and Luka obviously saw all the stuff happening with Ant and maybe took it a bit personally and one-upped him. So incredible. And then, Boston, I mean, they haven't had the toughest run. It seems as if they've kind of got through in a bit of an unconvincing fashion. Granted, they have been without Porzingis, who's been paramount for them this year in terms of being able to play a little bit of a different way that they haven't done in the last few years. But, yeah, it's shaping up to be a very interesting series. And I think, for me, I think Porzingis coming back is a key. And another key for Dallas would be who steps up. I think you look at, playoff series in general, over the last few years. Last year, who stepped up for the Nuggets in the finals was Bruce Brown, Aaron Gordon. It's that third guy after the two stars in Luka and Kyrie who I feel like could make a serious difference. Boston's obviously got the more depth and a better starting five. But, Dallas got the best player in the series in Luka.
Yep.
Kyrie probably understands the moment the best out of anyone playing in the series in terms of, the NBA Finals, what that entails, being able to win and succeed at that level. So is it a guy like PJ Washington who, has another great series like he did against OKC? Or is it, maybe a guy like Lively or Gafford who senses that Porzingis, if he comes back, or if he's not playing, or if he comes back, he's maybe under the weather a little bit. Do they run him up and down the floor and have a real impact on the glass or something like that? So I feel like that's the thing I'm looking for on a Dallas side. And then whether Porzingis is playing and whether he's actually healthy is another big thing.
You know what you're going to get from Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving. It's whether Derek Jones Jr. and PJ Washington, they're going to get a lot of looks.
That's right.
They're going to leave them open. So, yeah, if they can hit those threes and take those chances, it'll make a big difference. What are your thoughts? Obviously, Jaylen Brown got Finals MVP in the Eastern Conference. Most people would suggest Tatum's the better player. How do you think that dynamic works?
Personally, I know it doesn't happen. It's just the way it's sort of the narrative gets built is there's a star player at the center of everything and they shoulder a huge responsibility and the pressure's on them. And if they don't, receive an award like that or they don't take the final shot of a game, everyone's sort of on them for that. But I would like people to look at it from a tandem perspective. I mean, they've grown a lot over the last 4 years together. Jaylen Brown's become such a better player this year and probably gone to that level where he can win an Eastern Conference Finals. And Boston's been an incredible team all year. I think Tatum probably wants to be that guy, wants to be the superstar that is known for taking the last shot, winning all the awards. But I feel like I've seen growth in him the last sort of 12 months. He's genuinely unselfish, I'd say.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of guys in the NBA say they are unselfish. I don't think they are. Tatum genuinely seems like a guy who's, willing to not have as good as stats and give up shots if it means his team wins.
A while ago, he was probably taking the tough shot.
Exactly. There was that. I think it was the year they made the finals in the first sort of 25 to 30 games. It was sort of like my turn, your turn with Jaylen and Jason, and they were just shooting. And there was teammates who were getting a little bit fed up with it. I think Marcus Smart had a couple of interviews that were public, and he was flat about it, which was fair. I mean, it was pretty stagnant offense, and now they've got incredible ball movement. You watch them; they're a great team to watch. And also, I feel like Tatum, he's obviously been their best player all year, top 5 MVP candidate. Teams scheme so hard for the best player. So I feel like in saying that he's genuinely unselfish, they're all coming after him. They'd be blitzing him, double teaming him. He's happy to just flick it off to Brown, who's more than capable now of taking over the series.
Obviously, Luka, best player in the series. Looks like he's been carrying some sort of knee issue. He's kind of running around on one leg. Do you think he's got enough in the tank?
I think he does. I mean, he's incredible. Let's just say that. He has a sense of the moment that not many people have, and that killer instinct that's, people probably wish Tatum had a bit more.
Yep.
He's sort of on this interesting career path of what a lot of stars have. He's highly touted. Probably fell a bit in the draft because of the uncertainty around, playing in Europe and how that translates. And then there's the trade on draft night that's, a huge mistake by Atlanta and will be regretted for a while. And then he's just been so dominant, ever since he stepped foot, wowed us with his talent straight away and has had some challenges over the last few years. People have been questioning his professionalism, whether he's willing to get his body in shape. All sorts of other things, whether teams can win playing that sort of high usage style. He's likened to Harden a little bit, how he hangs onto the ball and guys sort of just sit around waiting for him. But it seems like he's matured a little bit, and it does help that they've had Kyrie where he's gained trust in someone else to defer to. But he still has that dog in him, just to take over in games and key moments of games when he just says, "No, this is my turn. I'm taking over this game." And I mean, it's so good to watch.
Kyrie's a huge story.
Yep.
So he's back in Boston. There's obviously a messy ending there. The crowd is going to give him an enormous amount of abuse.
Yeah.
Like he's in the past, he's flipped the bird to them. Like he's cried back at them.
Yep.
How do you think he handles that?
You're right. He hasn't helped himself, has he? He stepped on the logo as well,
Yep.
on the Celtics logo, which is supposed to be unlucky. I mean, if it's going to make the series more interesting, no doubt about it. The fans, I mean, I hate saying this as a Lakers fan, but the Boston fans are, probably A1 and A2 with the Knicks fans in the league. They're incredible. So that's going to be sort of another subplot that's going to make it interesting. But in saying that, I feel like Kyrie, granted he said some stupid stuff over last year and done some stupid things, as you alluded to. I feel like he may have matured a little bit. And I don't think the fans going after him is going to faze him. Like, he seems to deal with pressure and clutch situations quite well. So, yeah, it seems like he's not grown up. I mean, I can't really say that, but he's handled it quite well this year, and he hasn't sort of had any slip-ups, saying stupid stuff for the last 12 months. And I think the Mavs front office got to get credit for it. I was listening to Howard Beck on the Ringer NBA show a couple of days ago, and they spoke about how teams have like roadmaps, and quite often in the NBA, because it's such a high-pressure environment, as soon as it stops working, they're quite hasty to blow it up. And they've sort of stuck with it. I mean, last year, they ended up tanking to get a pick, as we might touch on later in the pod, but it wasn't going well. And I'll be the first to say I was pretty skeptical about how Kyrie and Luka would work out. I thought they could be a good team. I didn't think they'd be this good getting to the finals. And they sort of stuck with it. And it's good to see that in the NBA that they've actually, had a roadmap.
Teams are quick to blow it up.
Exactly. And I mean, I understand that it's high pressure and they've got so many players sort of driving things, especially in big markets. But I would like to see, teams stick fat with their stars and with their coaches as well for a little bit longer. And I mean, they've come out the other side of it, and it shows that, it can work.
On that, drifting away from the series for a second, Phoenix are in a position like that where they may throw it all away. They kind of did after they lost the finals a couple of years back.
Why did they fire Monty Williams? I mean, obviously we're not there and we don't know. They speak a lot about the players need to be in on the coach, but why did they fire Monty Williams so quickly? They just come off like 2 pretty good years.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden they've sold the farm. They've got Beal in. They've got KD with Booker. It hasn't worked this year. Hasn't worked at all. Do they go again? Like, it's dangerous. So Dallas have probably shown the blueprint now.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't know what they do. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
The off-season is almost as entertaining as the regular season. It is a great time. You spoke about tanking. So Dallas were pretty crafty last year. They weren't content with play-ins. They weren't going to probably win a championship from the play-ins. So with a couple of games left, they threw their games to effectively hold on to their protected top 10 pick. So basically they were going to lose their pick if they didn't get in the bottom 10. They've thrown those games. They've got Lively, who's now
been great.
He's crucial. He's been unbelievable.
Yeah, him and Gafford have been like essentially what Luka's been crying out for, like a rim running big who he can just throw the ball to.
The alley-oops.
After it. Yeah, I don't. In essence, I don't love the tanking, and I know the league sort of has tried things here and there. I don't know if they've tried as hard as they can, but to get rid of it. But it works.
Yeah.
I mean, teams seem to be getting rewarded, or at least giving themselves a chance to get a pick. I mean, the Spurs, in a bit of a different scenario, they were probably never going to make the playoffs, but it's worked for them. And I mean, Wemby's been incredible. So I don't have too many thoughts on it, except that it doesn't sit great with me. Yeah. But as a competitor, I like the competitive side of sport. But if I was in the same position as a GM, I'd probably do it as well. Yeah. Because it's a long-term competitive sort of move, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's obviously so relevant with the AFL. Everyone's been talking about North Melbourne winning that game against Gold Coast, and it is so frowned upon in Australian sport to do that.
It's not in our culture, is it? We hate that. And I agree. I agree with that.
If there was any NBA owner owning North Melbourne, they don't even go close to beating Gold Coast last year. It's just completely different. Yep. Like I support Utah Jazz in the basketball. The last 2 seasons, started the first half of the year pretty well, get to the trade deadline. They don't want to make playoffs. They want picks. They trade away Mike Conley, like anyone that's helping them win. They trade away and then they rest blokes for the rest of the season and literally miserably finish in the bottom 10.
And I feel like teams are trying to avoid that sort of level of mediocrity where you're sitting maybe 8 to 12,
Yeah.
or maybe just inside the plane. Well, there's a plane now, so you might even not play playoffs. But
Yeah.
I remember Orlando. It would have been, probably 5 to 6 years ago. They were just stuck in this zone, and even the Bulls, where they had Vucevic, but
Yeah.
they were never going to
There's no
finish
point.
top 4, and they were always a chance of. They were too good to sort of slip down and get a pick.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you've either got to make that move to get a start,
Yep.
and go all in and try and have a tilt at a championship, or you just go you blow it up. And
Yeah.
teams just seem to keep blowing it up and keep blowing it up and keep blowing it up and giving it another go. And I mean, it becomes a vicious cycle at some stage.
Yeah, I think teams are so desperate to get, Jokic has won his side a chip.
Yep.
You got Curry, now Luka, Tatum, these guys. And I think the only way to do it is with like a top 3 draft pick.
Exactly.
That's how people see
you got to
it.
build through the draft, especially if you're like Utah. You're not
Yeah.
a huge market. I mean, you're not going to.
Yeah, you got to land one.
You're not
going to
lure free agents. You got to get your top 5 pick and hit big on someone.
The other element to this is the lottery, which I think would be great.
Well, that's the thing. You can
for the
get there,
AFL.
but are you going to get the pick?
Exactly. So Utah this year tanked away. So for those that aren't big NBA followers, it's a lottery in the draft. You get a certain percentage chance of getting each pick depending on where you finish. So Jazz were 34% chance of getting pick 8, a 26% chance of getting in the top 4, and ended up with pick 10.
Yeah.
So they've tanked away the back end of their season to only get what they probably would have got anyway if they had have kept going.
And it's supposed to be, a weaker draft class this year as well.
Exactly.
There's
So you're
probably not as much top end talent
No.
as you're not going to hit big. Well,
No.
we don't know this, but
pretty
that's what they're
unlikely to get that.
a Luka player.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's pretty incredible. But
yeah. So it's a wild thing, the draft lottery.
exactly. I mean, that's the risk you play if you try and lose all those games and you don't end up getting the pick that you were after.
What are your thoughts on what Wemby is going to do in the NBA?
I mean, have you watched much of him this year? It's been so good to watch, and
Playing with players who have no idea how to utilize him either.
Yeah, I mean, wait till he can get with a team around him.
Yeah.
That's going to suit the way he plays. But I feel like, everyone's got a lot of confidence, and it's not because he's 7'6" with a 8-foot wingspan. And he plays defense like no one else, and hits threes. But I feel like he's got a good head on his shoulders, and like that will go a long way towards him being good over a long time. Being able to sort of bring teammates in and build a good team around him. I feel like he wouldn't be a very self-centered type star. He'd be very humble, welcoming of teammates. And hopefully, with that, he can build the right team around him who, understand this is our guy. We'll play for him in whatever way we need to win. So, basketball won by him going to the Spurs.
Yeah.
That was just a match made in heaven. Great organisation for his development. The only thing really, knock on wood, that we have to worry about is him getting injured.
Yeah,
really.
I think that's what everyone was worried about initially because he's so skinny and tall. But it was the same with Chet, like similar
That's right.
physique, and Chet missed the whole first season, but didn't miss a game this season. So, yeah, hopefully.
Very excited to watch him again next year.
Yeah. Who does Spurs put around him? Is it someone like Trae Young?
I've been vocal on a podcast before. I don't think Trae Young's a winning player. And he's not a Spurs player either. So I wouldn't like to see a player like Trae Young. Probably a guard, but not someone who doesn't defend like Trae Young. Maybe he could change. I'm open to players changing. I never want to write someone off like that, but I just don't think he's the guy. But yeah, the appeal of Wemby is there. So maybe they could get a free agent signing or a young guy who's up for trade saying, I want to go there and play with Wemby because he's not that far away from...
Yeah.
Well, he's already torn the game apart.
100%.
He's unlike anything we've ever seen. So if you're a young guy and you've got some trade value and you can make a move, or if you're a team looking to make a move, maybe the Spurs are involved in some way.
Yeah, you want to be a teammate of Wemby's. There's championships
Definitely.
in sight there.
Yep.
Lakers, so you get LeBron. Does that increase your love for the Lakers? I know you were a follower of LeBron before that.
Yeah, it does. I feel like everyone, well, there's some LeBron haters, but everyone else is sort of like, he's probably in your top handful of favourite players to watch. So that was crazy, especially, we were coming out of a bit of a rough patch. I think that was maybe when my peak for basketball, my love for basketball peaked. I was watching every Laker game every day, and we were putting out starting fives with, some pretty average teams. Ronnie Price, Robert Sacre, I don't know if you know those guys, but I stuck pretty fat throughout those times, and they were average. And so when LeBron finally came, even when we drafted Lonzo and Ingram, there was a bit of hope there. And then when LeBron came, I was like, far out. Like, I could be able to see some success again. And it was really, I don't want to, be complaining I did get all the championships
Yeah.
for Kobe as well. So, but yeah, it was awesome when LeBron came. And granted, we've only won that one championship in 2020. It's been fun to sort of turn on every Lakers game and watch LeBron, AD, even Reeves this year. I mean, it's been a pretty fun team to watch.
Are you satisfied with one that LeBron's brought? Like, should it have been more? That's the sort of the question.
I mean, I don't want to be greedy. I would have loved another one, but I mean, I was very happy with that one as well. I thought maybe the year after we had another chance, and then it sort of got away from us and we lost that series to Phoenix. We probably didn't do ourselves the world of good by not getting a good seed that year. But I guess that's kind of the problem with LeBron and AD. I mean, he played a lot of games this year, but LeBron's just not. If we want him to be in good nick for the finals, he's not going to be able to, play 50, 60 games or upwards towards 80. So then we're probably not going to get the best seed possible because we rely on him so much. So that's probably where our downfall is at the moment. We need another guy who can sort of help shoulder that load when he's not playing. And AD playing a lot more games here went a long way towards that, and we sort of got our act together at the end of the year. But yeah, coming in as a 7-8 seed in the play-in, it's just that extra bit of playing and stress that you don't need.
So what's the answer, do you feel, for the Lakers from here? Like, they're in an interesting spot.
Yeah, it is. Well, obviously we're probably going to get JJ coming in as a coach, which is interesting. I mean, he hasn't got any coaching experience. But one thing I do know about him is he's incredibly passionate about basketball. I've listened to his podcast for a long time. He's incredibly in-depth, loves the X's and O's. He's obviously got that Mind the Game podcast with LeBron where they go pretty in-depth. I haven't listened to that a lot yet.
It adds to the wild nature of basketball. The fact he's about to coach his podcast co-host.
I know.
That's why NBA is so entertaining.
Do they keep doing it? I wonder. But do they break down their own games? But yeah, so I mean, that's one thing that does sit well with me is that JJ loves basketball and he's passionate. I know every coach loves it, but like he's really into it and he's probably been thinking about this for a long time. And then obviously he knows LeBron, and I sort of touched on it a bit before. From what I read and hear about the NBA, as soon as the players are out on a coach, that's when he gets the arse. So
that's been Milwaukee's trouble, hasn't
exactly. And maybe that happened with Ham this year. Who knows? Yeah. I mean, we don't know enough about what's going on inside the organisation. But if you've got the backing of LeBron early, it sounds crazy to say this, that one player has so much power. And again, that doesn't sit well with me being an Australian. That's not sort of how our sport works. But that's a good start for JJ in terms of his longevity. But I'd like to see guys like Vincent get a full training camp under his belt and play healthy the whole year. Vanderbilt, who's an important player for us, sort of, he missed the back end of the season. So if we can probably add just another piece or two, I'm happy for us to look at trade options. Obviously, we've got to give up a bit. Maybe a Donovan Mitchell. I'm not in on Trae Young, so I don't want to hear about that. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Lakers are always busy, so something could happen at any day once the season finishes.
You talk on the value LeBron has and the weight of the players. I guess the difference between basketball and AFL, one of the main differences between basketball and AFL is the fact you've got 5 on a court v 18 on a field. So you can have the best player in the comp in the AFL. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be
as many games.
Yeah, you don't carry the same level of importance. One player can literally just win a game.
Take you to the promised land, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's...
they wield so much power.
100%.
Yeah. It's interesting, the player, how much power they have. Even with like the clutch sports stuff, how Rich Paul and LeBron can deter players from signing from different teams. It's just crazy how much power they actually wield.
Yeah. It's an incredible industry.
It is. It really is on a number of fronts.
Adding to that is the fact that LeBron James' son is about to enter the NBA draft. So it's almost like nothing's real in the NBA.
I know,
it's quite incredible. Do you think he ends up at the Lakers? There's been a bit of talk that Phoenix could be in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to a few interviews of Bronny's. He seems like he's got, like I said about Wemby, he's got a good head on his shoulders. With everything, the circus that goes on in the NBA and the fierce attention that's around his dad, he seems like he's a good character. And even listening to him speak, you feel like a lot of guys coming out of the draft, they've got a rational confidence where they think, I've got to be the best player on the team. My end game is I'm taking 25 shots a game. I'm going to be an all-star. Whereas I feel like he knows what kind of player he wants to be, and he'll play within himself. And that seems to be the report coming out of him. He spoke about he likes guys, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Davion Mitchell. Like, he's that defensive-minded guard who can shoot threes. So for him, I'm happy for him to go anywhere. I mean, he seems to be, I don't know I think I listened to something of him saying he kind of wants to get out of his dad's shadow, which is so understandable. So for him, I'd just love to see him go to, a good organisation where he can develop the right way and become, just a good NBA player. I mean, that is probably what he's after. If he comes to the Lakers, great, I'd be wrapped. That means we get to keep LeBron guaranteed for another couple of years. That'd be awesome. But for himself, I mean, he seems like a good kid, and I just want him to sort of get out of that area.
All right, I want to talk Olympics. It's an exciting time for basketball, I think. Like last year, the World Cup actually really took off, and the fact that the USA performed so poorly, given the talent they had to select from, and it's led to this incredible 12-man squad. What are your thoughts on Team USA?
Yeah, well, it's great to see that they're back. It's at the FIBA World Cup. Obviously, they don't sort of put the full cattle in. It's awesome. I mean, everyone wants to watch Team USA. As you said, Olympics, basketball, FIBA World Cup, it's heaven to me. I love watching international basketball. They'll probably win gold. But in saying that, like the international talent pool is as high as it's ever been. You've got teams like Canada with like genuine stars now. Murray, obviously SGA, RJ Barrett.
Olenek Candy.
Yeah, exactly. Great team. Got Greece. Hopefully Giannis plays. Serbia with Jokic. So, yeah, you'd imagine, US is the overriding favourite, but there's going to be some seriously good basketball played as well.
How do you...
France with Wemby and Rudy Gobert.
Yeah,
Imagine trying to stop those two guys. Like, that's crazy. I can't wait to watch that.
You're not getting any layups.
No.
How do you pick a starting five for Team US?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You've got so much talent.
Yeah.
Then you've got to
It
find
could
a way
clash.
that it gels. Exactly. That's their greatest strength is how much talent they have, but it can also be their weakness, and that's what we've seen before. So, I mean, you've probably just got to... I feel like everyone does put their ego aside for Team USA and in the pursuit of winning gold. So you probably just got to try and find a team that gels in that starting five. You've obviously got your stars, but then guys that fit well around them, specifically in the bigs position. I feel like that's really important in international basketball. You need guys who can rebound and defend the post. So if they've got sort of a bigger guy in the five who's maybe not as talented, and then maybe a point guard who can sort of get things going, and then you've got your three guards and 3 stars in the middle of that who'll play as well.
How do you think the Boomers go?
Yeah, it's intriguing. I mean, we've sort of got that new wave of players coming through. Giddey, Dyson Daniels, Matisse Thybulle's coming in. Australian basketball's really in a great spot for sort of young guys coming in. Johnny Furphy, a guy coming out of Kansas who's going to be in the draft this year. I'm not sure if he'll get a look into the Olympics squad, but it's sort of that changing of the guard, and I feel like we tried to phase that in the FIBA World Cup, where we went from, obviously Paddy was our main guy, and Ingles and Delhi. But now I feel like we tried to put the ball in Giddey's hands a little bit more, and which we have to, because he's going to be our best player going forward.
Yep.
And there was a few growing pains there. We probably, to our own expectations, didn't meet them. So I'll be interested to see whether they, we've got a medal chance up for grabs, which is the ultimate goal. Do we continue pushing for, putting the ball in Giddey's hands, Dyson Daniels' hands, trying to get those guys to create? Or if we lose, a couple games early, do we go, nah, Paddy's our best chance at, scoring 30 a game, running all our offense through him? Do we sort of go back in that way? And even with our roster, who's going to get the majority of minutes in terms of young guys and older guys as well?
Yeah, you've then got Dante Exum and Josh Green, who are obviously
Still playing.
on Dallas.
Yeah.
Big opportunity for them. Exum's comeback story has been quite incredible.
It's been awesome. It's been so good to see.
He was gone from the NBA. You wouldn't have thought he was getting another look in. I think that's a really good thing about the international basketball now too. Like Jock Landale purely got an NBA contract off his Olympics form.
That's right.
You got Reith. You got the guys that are actually getting signed through this, and it's probably helped Exum as well. And like he's a genuine chance to play minutes in the final.
That's right. And I feel like international basketballers, Australian basketballers, they understand how to play basketball the right way. They understand the importance of playing a role on the court.
It's a team sport.
It's a team sport, and that's why they can carve out these roles. They're not quite often, apart from Ben Simmons when he was, still playing well, was sort of the main guy. But we haven't had a guy in the NBA who's that main guy. But there's so many Australians and international players who just fit into that sort of niche role that's so important for a team. So you've got, Exum coming off as that backup point guard, Josh Green is an energy guy, Landale, someone who runs the floor and shoots threes and crashes the boards. They understand, how to play that role, and they can make a shitload of money, sort of playing that role. So why not?
Yeah. Like even Ingles still on big money.
Exactly.
For, like,
he's that locker
an
room
older
guy, hitting threes, playing defense, like as best he can with
Yeah.
that knee. But
He's just like the dad in a young group of Orlando kids.
understand the importance of what their sort of specialty role can
Yeah,
bring to a team.
it's prolonged his career massively.
Exactly.
You got Giddy, like interesting talking point. Obviously started unbelievably well this year. For the first time in his career, basically came off the bench in the playoffs and is now in a really interesting spot where OKC probably look to move him.
Probably.
Like,
yeah.
where do you think he fits in the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, as we said, the Australian guys understand the importance of role. So although he probably didn't love coming off the bench, he still sort of went okay in that role.
Yep.
Granted, it was limited minutes. His stats aren't going to be as good. But, yeah, I think they probably at least consider it, don't they?
Yeah.
They've already got, SGA. Williams has, sort of surpassed Giddy in that second spot. And then Chet, you can't move him because he's just a different piece. So... and then you think about not only that, but Williams and Holmgren are still on their rookie contracts. So eventually you're going to have to pay 3 guys.
Yeah.
You can't pay 4 guys. So Giddy's probably the one who looks to get moved. Initially, I was thinking, the Jazz were blowing it up. Could they have gone for someone like Markkanen? Obviously, there's salary cap troubles there. But is it a big to help out Holmgren? Because that was clearly their Achilles heel in the playoffs. They just needed one more sort of big to bang down low with other guys on the glass. And Holmgren, as good as he has a huge crack, but he's just a little bit, slight of size. So he needs someone as a bit of help. I wonder what they get back for Giddy. I mean, what do you think is the haul that they can potentially get back? It's the Gobert trade has set it's not that level of player,
No.
but the precedent of returns for players is,
It's
no one
made-
knows what to expect now. It's crazy.
The Gobert trade has made trading so hard.
Yeah.
Because you can't compare to it.
It'll be very interesting to see which direction OKC sort of go with that. Do they hang on to him? Like, I mean, they seem to love him.
Yeah, he's
as much
useful.
as they
Like,
might.
Great
Exactly.
passer.
Yeah. I feel like, he probably won't want to take that role, but in a lesser role on that team, he fits really well.
Yeah, like as a sixth man, they're
Exactly.
a championship threat.
Indeed.
I want to go through favourite players. So it's such a open question who your top favourite players are in the NBA because you can justify them for so many different reasons. So I did send you a text to give you some time to prepare because I feel like you can't be hit with that out of the blue.
Yeah.
I've gone through mine as well, and it was so.
All right, you give me
tough
yours
to mould
first.
Them. All right.
I've got 4. I have 4 in mind. I have one more I need to think of.
Yeah, okay. So I'll go 5-1. I'm starting with Joe Ingles, which is
Love that.
it's
I love that.
justifiable because obviously I go for Utah. He's the reason.
Yeah.
Started as an NBL fan following the South Dragons in
Love that.
2008, and Joe Ingles was like an athletic 18-year-old that was like running up and
Joe
dunking.
Ingles and athletic, it just doesn't.
I know, and now he's just
Doesn't go
like
together.
this 3-point shooter. Obviously, his best is past him, but he's been big for my love of NBA. And I'll mention I'm actually very lucky. I've photographed all 5 of these players, so I got to go over to the NBA. I've been twice now and had a media pass. So
Yeah, wow.
I've actually it's a coincidence that these 5 are my favorite. But I've got Joe at 5, LeBron at 4.
Probably got to have him in there.
Yeah, you can't go past him. As you said, unless you're a hater, which there are, and
plenty.
that's just people who like Michael Jordan,
Yep.
essentially,
Yeah.
then he's got to be in your 5. Luka at 3.
Yeah.
I love the way he smiles when he's going well.
Yeah.
Like, he has so much fun playing basketball.
Yeah, he's so good to watch.
And some of the shots he pulls out. And I've got a good Luka story. So
Please.
I actually left my girlfriend for Luka Doncic. I left her outside in Toronto by herself.
Just for the record, I have a girlfriend as well. I would do the same thing.
Exactly. And I feel like if he wins the finals, it's completely justified.
Yeah, definitely.
So we got to Toronto, obviously Dallas playing away, and usually the gates were opening at an hour and a half before the game. So I had a media pass. Obviously, my girlfriend didn't. We got tickets to the games. I was like, all right, I'll take you to the gate. You can walk in, you go to the seat. I'll walk in the other way, go on the court, take some photos, and I'll sit with you during the game.
Yep.
Which was generous in itself because I could have been like close to the court during the game.
Yep.
Anyway, we got to Toronto and they didn't open until an hour before the game. And I was like, so we're quite early. I said, there's a chance Luka Doncic is warming up right now. That's going to be my only chance to like be this close to him.
Yep.
How are you feeling about Toronto? And luckily it was the back end of the trip. We'd been in America, and she was feeling probably a little bit safer in Toronto. She said, yeah, you can go. I'll make some phone calls. And got on the court, got some snaps of him. So
Wow.
That's
awesome.
And then number 2, obviously being a Jazz fan, Lauri Markkanen. So
Yep.
I got to go to one Utah game and he absolutely lit it up. He got
In Utah?
Yeah, 38 points. And that was at the start of 2022 season when
Yep.
the tanking was beginning. There were no players. Like, we thought we were going to be terrible. And we won like
Will Hardy's
9.
first year?
Yeah, won
Yeah.
like 9 of the
I
first
remember
11
that.
games.
Yeah,
something.
yeah, I
So
remember that.
when I booked tickets to see Utah v Phoenix, I was like, wow, we're going to get spanked. And we won by a point, 132 to 133.
Was that at the start of the year?
Yeah.
I actually think I sat at home and watched that on League Pass that game.
Booker dropped 49.
Yeah, yeah.
It was wild. And Lowry just went off. His shooting for a 7-footer is incredible. I don't think his year this year was as good as obviously his All-Star season, but I think he needs better people around him as well. Like a Giddy next to him would be great. Like, feed him the ball.
Yeah.
LeBron, like, he could potentially go to the Lakers. I obviously hope he stays, but
That would be nice.
yeah, he can really shoot the ball. So Lowry at 2. And then number 1, which is controversial as a Utah fan, but still Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
Like, obviously loved him at Utah. I probably got into basketball hardcore during the hub in 2020
Yep.
when we basically had nothing to do most of the time except for sit in our room. And that's when
Watch
the
the hell
playoffs
hell
were.
out of them, yeah.
Yeah. And he was like going head to head with Jamal Murray at that point. And yeah, some of the stuff he can do, like his 70-point game
Yep.
last year, he does some crazy things. So that's the top 5. And
I love that top 5.
Ja Morant's stiff. I turn on the TV to watch Ja Morant.
So he's so I can. That's your 5.
He's my emergency.
Honorable mention.
Yeah.
Cool. Because I have an honorable mention,
Yeah.
and that's LeBron.
Yeah.
He would be in my top 5, but I kind of wanted to go in a little bit of a different direction. Not necessarily the best players in the NBA, but guys I love watching, and that I'll turn on my League Pass to watch. So 5, I have Sengun.
Yeah.
I absolutely love watching him play. I've reposted some of his highlights packages on Twitter. I love passing. Like, that's like my favorite skill to watch in the NBA. Guys who can just sort of pick apart a defense. Hence why I love LeBron. I love Luka. That's just what I love to watch. And the way he passes out of the post, the moves he puts on people in the post. Like, I used to be a guard when I played basketball. No surprises to anyone. Yeah. But he is just so good to watch. Him and Jokic, sort of similar centers who can run the offense through them. So he's my number 5. My number 4 is Derek White.
Wow.
And sort of ever since he sort of got traded to Boston, obviously watching him a little bit more, he's in a bit of a bigger market where he's got more national TV games. So you sort of pay a bit more closer attention to him. But he's just a great player. Like, he plays the right way. Again, as I said, I love guys who can pass. He makes the right play every time, plays defense, really well, and shoots the ball really well.
He makes the shot when he gets the chance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's just a great player to watch. If I could be any sort of basketball player, that's the type of player I'd like to be.
That's the great thing about this question, because those 2 players I could not have guessed were going to be in your top 5.
Exactly. Random. You won't even guess the third. The third is so random, and I mean, he's not probably on the level of these guys, but I just love watching him play. And it's Devin Vassell from the Spurs.
Wow.
I'm not just trying to be alternative. I actually love watching him play, and I've watched a lot of Spurs this year because of Wemby.
Yep.
And I feel like people who don't know enough about Vassell should go and watch the Spurs and watch his tape, because he's such a good scorer. Austin Bradkey.
He's the best player that plays alongside Wemby.
Definitely, 100%. Austin Bradkey, I'll give a shout out to him. He coined the term hooper, and it's guys who just know how to play basketball, and Devin Vassell is that guy. So go and watch him if you haven't watched him enough. Luka comes in as my number 2 for obvious reasons. We've touched on him. And then number 1, who's been my favourite player probably for the last 5 to 6 years, is Dame. I've just always loved watching him play, how clutch he is, the way he scores it. Yeah, he's my number 1.
That is a good list. I want to mention LeBron. So I actually had an encounter with him as well.
Please tell me that.
I've got recently, I was at my parents' place and the whole family was there, and everyone was talking about how their lock screen was their partner. I don't know if yours is. I don't know what
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And then I said
It was LeBron.
Yeah.
It isn't anymore.
Yeah, I said, sorry, Brooke, mine's LeBron. So
Did you take that
I
photo?
took this photo of LeBron.
Oh, wow.
So Staples Center, it was my first ever. The NBA media is crazy. So I got a media pass, got over there. It was my first game. I rocked up to the gate. I said, here, collect my media pass. And my name wasn't on their list. And I was like, I was pretty excited. And they're like, oh, that's okay. Like, we'll just write your name on a pass. So they gave me a blank pass and just wrote my name on, just believed me. I was entitled to be there, but they didn't know that.
Yeah.
So they let me through. I just walked through before anyone's in the stadium, walk straight onto the court, straight across down into the rooms, and you can go in the rooms pre-game as a media, and you can interview any player. They're entitled to say no, the players pre-game. They have to say yes post-game. So you can actually interview anyone. It's crazy.
That is incredible.
Yeah, I was in the rooms when someone asked Pat Bev for a pre-game interview, and he's like, no. But so I was in the Lakers locker room, and these rooms are tiny. So you like walk down the corridor, they got like the kitchen on the left, and then on the right they got the rooms and just a bathroom through there. So they're not big.
Yeah.
And I was probably standing there with like 7 or 8 guys, and I was like, I'm just going to stand in front of LeBron's locker so that when he walks in, like he's just going to walk straight past me. So I'm literally, that wall is LeBron's locker and I'm standing right here. And I've just got my phone kind of like secretly ready to take some photos. And he walks in and he just gives this like great pose, not to me, to someone like next to me, and just got that snap and got it printed out on the wall. So
God.
yeah, it's a great LeBron memory. And then post-game,
You've got to hook me up with a media pass, mate.
Post-game was wild. So AD dropped 40 in this game, and there would have been like 40 journos just in this corner like of AD's locker, just all around him.
But that means no one's with LeBron.
Yeah, so I knew they were doing an all-in presser, so to sort of save them. But you're right, no one was with LeBron. So I stood at the back of AD, right next to LeBron's locker, wait for him to walk out. You know, these blokes are walking around in their towel, like literally getting changed in the locker with 40 plus media in there. It's crazy.
That's crazy.
And so eventually the media turn and it's LeBron's turn. So I'm like this close to LeBron as he's doing a press conference.
Did you ask him a question?
I didn't. I asked Doc Rivers.
I would have choked up, I reckon.
There was probably too many, and yeah, I was pretty nervous. I asked Doc Rivers one. I choked up a bit in that, but got it out there. So
good answer.
It was a good answer. It was a pretty fluffy question. I was like, I don't want to.
Yeah, just softball.
But yeah, he's a nice guy, so I was confident enough to do that.
You were really challenged late in the game. Were you happy with that resilience?
Yeah, I was. We didn't listen again. Like we didn't close well. You know, I think that's an area that we're going to grow in.
It is a different world over there, and I think the access that the NBA provides, and it's even like the ability to share highlights on social media and things like that, like it just helps the game spread so much. I have a league pass. I probably wouldn't have a league pass if it wasn't for Twitter, like in the last 5 years. Whereas AFL is
NBA Twitter is unparalleled.
It's so good.
Yep.
The AFL is the complete opposite. They're so protective of everything. I understand like the broadcast deals and this and that, but I think they would benefit so much from being a little bit more open.
And I guess I'm probably like being an AFL player. I'm naturally protective of like my own privacy as well.
Yeah.
But then I'm a complete hypocrite because I want more of the NBA.
Yeah. How do you find like talking post game? Like you speak very well. I feel like you're educated as well in footy, so you don't really have trouble talking about the game. But do you enjoy doing it? Do you sort of?
I mean, I don't mind it, and I'm happy to like give like decently honest answers. Like I don't want to. If I'm going to give an interview, I don't do a lot of them because like I mean, a lot of people aren't after me to get an interview off me. But I guess if you're going to do one, you might as well do it properly.
Yeah.
You don't need to say stupid things, but like give.
No one wants cliches.
Exactly. Like give a decent interview, have a bit of personality about you, be honest with whatever's happened and what they're asking you about.
And obviously yourself, I said it wasn't a footy podcast, but body, Achilles, how are you feeling?
Yeah. Getting better. It's been a bit of a frustrating year, as I sort of spoke to you about earlier before we went on air. But yeah, it's just sort of been one of those injuries where I've kept sort of progressing and getting better, and then sort of, one step forward, 2 steps back. And it's been frustrating. I've sort of lost a bit of confidence in telling people that it's getting better, but I feel like I have turned a little bit of a corner in the last week. So hopefully sort of start building back up within the next month and without having a definitive date. And I hope to be back playing footy at some level pretty soon.
Yeah, hope to see you on the park. Really appreciate the chat. Hopefully we do another NBA episode at some stage.
Would love to.
Just before we go, prediction. Score.
Yeah, I knew this would come. Dallas in 6 for me.
Wow.
Yeah, Luka as the Finals MVP. No surprise.
That makes sense because I was thinking Boston in 6. I feel like
I must admit I have changed probably 5 times in the last 48 hours.
I feel like Boston is just the better team. And I was thinking Boston in 6 because I don't think we're lucky enough to get Game 7 ever. But
it would be amazing.
But Boston in 6 would mean they'd have to win on the road in Game 6. I don't think they'll do that.
Yep.
I think Dallas will pinch a game in Boston because Boston.
I could see Dallas winning the first game. I could see Luka coming out really hard and having like 40.
Yeah. And
Kyrie, I could see Luka and Kyrie combining for like nearly 80. And
a bit of LeBron, Kyrie stuff.
Big time, yeah.
Fingers crossed we get a Dallas win.
Yep.
Thanks, Bards. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Benny.